Hello, it's Jenny with Soul Chats, and I'm here to introduce you to a new aspect of this podcast. And it's a little mini series that's going to have pop up episodes with the amazing, wonderful, fabulous Spirit Daddy. Spirit Daddy is Rick Chiantaretto. He's one of my really good friends. He is the founder of the world's largest metaphysical online store. Now, he might be like, the world, what the heck? I'm going to claim it for you, Rick. So, this is our first conversation. We've been wanting to do this for a while because we have a lot of great soul chats between the two of us. We talk about a lot of concepts. Rick brings a lot of depth into the conversation. He brings a lot of really fresh perspectives. He is a spiritualist. He is deeply intuitive, deeply connected. And I love that I get the opportunity to showcase his amazingness and the depth of our conversations. And so grab your favorite drink, grab your favorite snack, and join us for this first episode of Soul Chats with Spirit Daddy. Now
Thanks,
it's
Zoom
recorded. It's
lady.
like, hey,
And now
now
we're like,
what?
hey, what? Yeah.
We were just having like this whole like conversation, which is still like all pertinent because we were talking about how I don't know. I think really the purpose of this us like chatting is to have these conversations about like how do we live these soul driven, purpose driven, these aligned life and lifestyles, but that also allow us to understand the difference between the physical world and the spiritual world. And, we're going to go get caught up in this one or go caught up in that one. Like, where can we find the balance in all of that?
Yeah. Well, and I think, you were just talking about how it's so hard to move, right? Let me recap what I heard from you about how you want to make things difficult, how there are things you're supposed to do. You're supposed to help your partner while you're moving, right? You're supposed to do things at the end of the leases on the schedule, right? But it would be just easier if you were just to allow. And can I say Jay? I don't know. You can edit what you
Yeah,
need to
yeah, yeah,
edit, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, Jay's willing to do the moving thing while you're doing your retreat and willing to give you all of these moments of presence, and you still fight it, right? And that's exactly the point. Like, how does our spirituality and these spiritual lessons that we learn end up helping us to make our lives easier instead of complicating them, right? That is, yeah.
It's so crazy. It's like I noticed that with Jay, and for those of you who don't know, Jay's my husband, and he's awesome and amazing. And so I was like sitting there and I noticed how much he's been really like advocating for these are my words, like advocating for not like tolerating like bullshit anymore. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like not settling, not, and so he's being more vocal and like pushing back. So because I'm coming out of like these loops and patterns that have really been confusing for me, on top of like my spiritual path being like, what the fuck am I doing now? I don't know. Like a lot of things have been different. We'll just keep it that. We can talk about that. But he, so, anyways, I was like talking about moving, and I was like, hey, maybe we can move in April. Oh my God, that's the same time as the retreat. Should we do it this way? Like what you were saying. And then he goes, oh, well, I'll do it. You could do it this way. We could do it that way. And I noticed I was in that struggle, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, why am I fighting to stay in this struggle when you literally gave me every opportunity to practice presence, to practice allowing, to practice receiving because of
In
control,
simplicity, yeah. Mhm.
simplicity. It's because of control. Like I was like,
Yeah.
dude, there's a part of me that's like afraid to let go because I need to be involved. I need to make sure that everything's clean so we don't like all these things that my mind I have to make sure everything's packed right. I got to make sure everything like is it really that crucial? Like can I not trust that my husband has my back? But even going in the spiritual world, like, can I not trust that spirit has my back?
Right. Yeah.
Like, what does it actually take for us to believe like
I,
that spirit
I
has our back?
I think you hit it on the head. It really does come down to identifying that thing that whatever that pattern is, right, that we're unwilling to let go of. For you, it's control. For me, it's security, right? That's one that's huge for me, right? Uh, and I think that once we identify that, then we can start saying to ourselves, okay, it's not that I lack trust. It's not that I don't trust Jay or I don't trust spirit, right? It's that I have this need to control. So now, how can I pull that into my presence to find comfort, at least for just a moment, to be able to let that go and just see what that feels like, right? And there is a bit of you that's kind of like, wow, that would be really easy. Whether or not you do it is still to be determined, right? But I do the same thing. Yeah, yeah.
I was listening to a training today from someone I really love, which, mind you, right now I'm practicing. I laugh because I was like, am I practicing this? I was reflecting. Yeah, I've been trying to be as mindful as I can about when I listen to things for learning, because that's something that feeds into one of my old patterns that I
Uh-huh.
want to like create a new reality around, is like the insecurities or whatever, and being like, oh my God, I gotta learn something so I can be better and I can do the thing, is how I've noticed that that shows up. But also, I do like learning things.
Sure.
I really do. So, anyways, this woman that I was listening to, her name's Andy Love, and she brings like a clinical scientific approach to somatic healing, which is really hot right now. Like a lot of
Yeah,
coaches and spiritual people are really into somatics. And I'm only speaking from my little small lens. I don't have years and years and years of experience. I mean, I have years of being a human and living as a somatic human. But like in this
sure.
specific field, she brought like her clinical background into the coaching space and really brings a lot of things together for me where I feel like I'm ready to listen to them. And she was talking about this concept that, you know, a lot of times what happens is we're like navigating life in a very disembodied way.
Yeah.
And these terms are thrown around a lot, but I love the way that she broke it down, because disembodied.
I'm going to add that to my list of terms to talk about today. Disembodied.
Okay, that's a good one.
Okay,
Yeah, like
yeah.
just disembodiment being out of the body, literally, is what it means. And embodied means in the body. But also, like with these patterns that come up, she was talking about how she really believes in these like small little steps that are like the bridge between the two. And when we are rewiring, a lot of us, because these society and pressure and whatever, we got to do it faster, faster, faster. Quantum leap. She talks about quantum as the smallest word,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
leap is a series of these little quantum changes that then creates the leap.
Right.
And so she's all about like these small little titrations that you do over and over and over, because what happens often is we go blast it all out, and then we're really outside of like that place of comfort. So we
Mm-hmm.
blast it all out, we feel good up here, but then we come back down here, we even crash below our comfort zone. And then what? And
Yeah.
I think for me, and maybe this will kind of like roll into what we're going to talk about today, it's like for me, it's like I think that's what's happened when she explained that. I've had these really highs, and then I've crashed so low below, and I'm like confused. I'm like, what the? And I've even recently been like, fuck spirituality. And I don't really mean
Sure.
it, but like in the anger, because spirituality has brought me a lot of stuff. But there's a part of me that's like, fuck all that. I've been trying to listen to all that and it didn't fucking work. Like, it has this
Yeah.
like madness to it. Um, I think what I'm doing is I'm finding my balance. I'm finding exactly the purpose of these conversations, to find the dichotomy and understand kind of where we each of us land in each chapter of our journey.
Yeah. I was just simply going to say something that I find a little interesting about that somatic teaching. And I was just talking about how there's a word for what I love, and it's antithesis. I love the devil's
Mm,
advocate. I love
mm,
the challenging of what these words mean, right? And one of the things that I kind of struggled with that conversation right there that I wanted to call out, because that's what we're talking about today, is the idea that being disembodied is not as good as being
mm,
in the body or embodied, right? So I think it's really important to understand that when you want to be embodied and can't find that centered calm in your space, right? That's a problem. But there are many things that we do that are disembodied that are good, right? And there, especially when we're working with spirit and we need to kind of get out of our own way, you hear people talking about a lot to allow spirit to be clear, right? There is a disembodiment that happens there. And if we can't disembody because we're too embodied in those moments, then in that case, being embodied is bad, right?
Mm.
And so I do, yeah, I love kind of challenging that idea that either is better than the other, I guess, because it really does depend on where you are, what chapter you're in, like you said, what you're doing in that moment. None of us want to go through life with the blinders on and in strict habit, right? But at the same time, sometimes that's how to get through something.
Hmm.
You
What you're
look like you're gonna
saying
say,
makes me, well, what you're saying makes me think like, as part of this journey, tying in another term we were going to bring in, like ascension, like ascension, if you really lean into it from a spiritual perspective, means many, many different things depending on what lens you're looking for. But ascension means going up, rising up, and, perhaps like meeting nirvana and all of this stuff. And while that is probably a very beautiful journey, I cannot speak from it because that's not like a path I guess I'm on it, but like chasing ascension as the goal, I really wonder many, many times with all my experiences, like, are we chasing a goal that may be out of alignment when really it's about how do you bring those things back in to this experience so that you can tap into all these different tools. You can tap into the pro and the con. Even just look the way we set up. We didn't even do this on purpose. Like my background's all bright and stuff and yours is all dark. Like the
right,
light and dark, the dichotomy of things.
yeah.
How can we lean into things that we maybe thought were bad and use those to our advantage when we need them and be able to use the whole spectrum
Mhm.
of these
Yeah.
resources. Hmm.
I do agree with you that, chasing ascension means you'll never find it, right?
Chasing anything.
Exactly. Haven't we figured that out yet? Like that's kind of a life lesson I think we all learned pretty early on that, you know, uh, you don't get things because you deserve them. That's for sure, right?
Why not?
So, so let's deserve us now, but on the same on the in the same breath, right? If that chase of ascension brings you purpose and motivation and ambition, and you are finding happiness in that journey, then good for you. Go for it. You've already found it. Go, right? Right. So yeah.
Well, and it's like hypothetically, right? When we get in this conversation, you and I could probably take any of these words we wrote down and play this nuance game, right? There's this and there's this, and here's the perspective on this, and here's the perspective on that. And there's always this nuance, which then brings you back into like why we're even having these conversations. And I think that we're still developing that, honestly, in a way. First of all, you and I are good friends. We love having these conversations. It's fun, but also just to bring my idea for soul chats in general was just to have conversations about these kind of things, to bring new ideas, new perspective, to be able to support others without it being necessarily like I'm teaching something,
Right.
right? By nature, we're going to teach stuff because it's going to come out through what we talk about, but also to be able to create space for people to find their path and maybe hear something new. For example, just you sharing, like, maybe disembodied is a really great place to be. That could literally be the key that unlocks somebody in something they were stuck with
Yep.
on their path. And they're like, oh shit, I
I'm
can do
allowed.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, with that being said, with all the nuance, I also feel like, is part of the essence of this time is also to like sometimes cut through the nuance to kind of, because like if we're always living in nuance, now are we kind of like leaning a bit into spiritual bypassing? Well,
Sure.
hey, there's always nuance, like and I can relate to that recently because I'm like, oh, but it's all nuance. What's the point of life? Because we're all just living in this dumb matrix anyway, so fuck it all. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
who cares? Doesn't matter,
Yep.
like it's like you can lean in any way in this.
That's
So
yeah.
how do we find our grounding? And I have my answer to that was like, how do we cut through the noise so we don't get too sucked up in other people's energy systems, ideas, etc.
Well, for me, again, there is a bit of permission aspect of that. Like, it's okay if I get caught up in somebody else's systems and ideas, and it's okay for me to live life in the 3D world as a human being who doesn't care about spirituality. Like, I can do both. Just because I'm in that mode now doesn't mean I'll be in that mode in 10 minutes. And both are okay, right? So for me, a lot of the cutting out of the nuance is it's fun for me to play with it. But there's a way that I just am, right? And giving myself permission to just be that is the biggest thing. So I can question my own spirituality and my path and everything that happens to me. I can question life and all those things. But the fact of the matter is, tomorrow I'm going to wake up and, okay, not tomorrow because it's Sunday. Monday, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go to my job and I'm going to do my work and I'm going to be in my logical brain from these hours. And then I'm going to do these things. Like, and I love my routine and I've set it up for that. And that routine is part of how I cut through the crap. But then I give myself some time to play and see what else is new and how my routine can shift and change, right? And question those things. Yes, for me.
Like, bottom line, I mean, I don't know, for me, and maybe this is because these are some of the things I'm meant to help guide people through. Because, it always used to bug me. Well, first, I liked it, then it bugged me, and now I'm understanding, right? Like, when someone goes out there and they're like, man, the root of all things is this, like
Right.
you will solve everything if you just learn how to be a medium, or I don't know, whatever even somatics, like the root of somatics is this. So if you can solve this, all the rest of it's just, I've heard it in so many different things, but I get it because I feel like I'm starting to go to that place where I'm like, but the root of everything is like when we're able to be and trust ourselves and trust our intuition more than we do the outside
As
world.
X, yes.
Like, I'm finding that being the root of it all, but it makes me wonder, like, maybe that's why that's part of my journey to help lead people through, for me to stand in that and be like, this is the root of it all, you know?
Well, and that is something that as we have these conversations that I want to be cognizant of and that I try to teach people, right? That I don't need to be right. We're playing a game, right? And I can tell you from my experience the things that have worked for me, but that doesn't mean that those same things are going to work for me, for you, right? My goal in sharing those experiences isn't to say this is true. It's to say this is the feeling or the experience that I had. And if you're seeking and empowered by those kinds of experiences and this works for you, cool. If not, still continue seeking that feeling and those experiences because there are other ways, right? Um, and a lot of that does come back to you have to listen to yourself. You have to trust your own intuition over those systems or those, you know, if you're the creator of your universe, you hear that all the time. Another one of those buzzwords, right? So that means you're always right, always. And cool. But then you start to realize if I'm always right and I have a belief, then I'm going to see the world through the lens of that belief. And what if it doesn't serve me? And then you get to play the game. But always come back to you're going to be right.
Until you learn something new
Yeah.
or something different and you're
Or
allowed
you
to
choose
change.
something else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so I know we've been kind of like dancing around some of these words, and we've already talked about some of these like different buzzy words, terms, etc.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone into a couple of them, but is there one specifically on your list that you feel like, okay, we need to give this one some attention?
Um, when I was thinking about this talk, the one that excited me most was to get your perspective on your experience where somebody told you what you were doing was demonic. I don't know how much you've shared
Mm,
and how
mm,
much you're willing to share about that. And it's not the demonic word that I think is the let's debunk or ground this into reality. It's more about, I guess, how we judge each other as humans.
mm.
And even within the spiritual community where we're supposed to be above it and in love and light, and maybe that's the phrase it is, right? Um, how we still don't understand that people's alignments can be different and their ways of working should be different, right? Is there what did I just make it more confusing?
my mind is kind of like my mind is like expanding out to all the things because I'm like, wow, this could be a really big topic beyond. That's what I noticed because I was like, oh my gosh, like if you just think about humanity and how so many people just don't understand or don't take the time to like deeply listen without agreeing, disagreeing, debunking, like so my mind kind of went big, like oh, it's a big topic. But also to stick with kind of what you said and like back into the story and practice maybe that's even an example of disembodiment to embodiment because my
Into
mind went,
embodiment. That's I
oh
was
my
just
god.
gonna say that. This
No,
is
I'm
it.
like, hold on.
Spirit, earth. Yeah.
I'm like, wait, okay, well, you asked about the story, so stick with the story. And let's be present instead of trying to control, blah, 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 blah. Let's be present and do that. So let's just see what happens. I can feel like a little bit of the insecurity or like fear of like, like really? Because my mind wants to control, like we already talked about. There's a certain like paradigm that plays out with me that I'm working on rewiring and navigating through. So you see, even I'm just like talking around it, like to like delay. I'm like, okay. So basically, let me see how I want to share this so that it's succinct
Yeah.
and not like all the details that are extra. Okay. In my work as an Akashic Records reader, I was invited into someone else's community and into their space. And what I'm finding in my journey with spiritual people, and we all have this, like we want to be mindful of who we invite into our space and who we will put our names. And this is anything. If I'm going to say a toothpaste, I want to be good on the
Sure.
toothpaste, right? And so I was invited into someone's space and they were like, hey, come on in, come on in and do this group thing, come on in and work with my clients. And so I did a group reading, done this a million times with cacao and in person and at spiritual fairs. I've done these readings one on one, Zoom. So I came in, I did my thing. I did like little group readings, I answered questions, and there was one person left because a lot of people had to go and did a reading. And there was some information that came through the reading that was pretty deep. And I speak sometimes in a soul language or what people call as a light language, or there's lots of different ways that it's referred to, but basically it is energy that's transmitting through that's not English. And I feel that a lot of times the energy transmitting through is just a different way to bypass the brain to be able to deliver an energetic message, is what I'm finding. And so in that session that had happened, and this person had never seen me do that prior. They only knew about the Akashic Records, and this was something new that had opened up. And so I had kind of prefaced it, and I was like, hey, and I do this in any of my readings. I'll say, hey, I'm about to speak, and something different. It's energy transmitting, FYI. And then that person went on to share their perspective of it. And they had kind of said, well, this is speaking in tongues. And they had kind of gone that route in their explanation on what it was. I then delivered, and for me, the experience, it was kind of like the clearest it had come through up to that point. It just felt very purposeful and intentional. Session closes. We're there. She had brought out the sage during and was saging. To me, all of this, I saw not like it just all seemed really normal. And after she did a lot of like um well her client that was there had said, like, man, I really feel like that might have cleared a curse in my family, like that's what I feel like it might have been. Do you really know? And I'm like, yeah, that part wasn't clear to me. I just know that it felt really clear the way it came through. And then she had come in, and this reminds me of my sales rep days where you're trying to maybe like mitigate a situation, or you're trying to play middleman because you've known this person. And honestly, maybe even kind of overstepping boundaries, because I can see how I maybe did that in sales, because you're trying to like control someone's experience in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You want to control their perception of your company. I've done that with sales before, because someone starts
Right.
talking like, oh no, it might not be like that. Maybe it's over here. Anyway, so we finished, and I got a voice note from this person saying, hey, thank you so much, but that I don't deal with that shit. I only deal with light and love, and um, canceling the session you were going to do with my other person, kind of best of luck. I don't want to continue. Keep the money I gave you. I don't want it. Goodbye. And it really, it shook me at the time, because I was like, what the, like, because I think underlying, I'm like, I'm not trying to deal with dark shit. Like,
Right.
I'm trying to hurt nobody. And I know there's a lot of deception that can happen in the spiritual space. All the false lights, all the stuff I see on social media. This person thought they were this, but it was really a false light of that, and fucking inverted Akashic records and all these different concepts I've seen
Yeah.
talked about.
I have, since the very first time I met you, right? You and I have talked about alignment and work and what that looks like. And there are so many times where you have said to me, boy, I hope spirit doesn't ask me to work like that, right? Because you're like, oh, that could be, what somebody might consider dark or whatever. So for me, it was shocking to hear that somebody had looked at you and claimed that there was some sort of darkness thing going on. That was
Mm-hmm.
because you are so mindful of how you connect and what you're connecting, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
it was interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, I sent you the message. You heard it, and so there's the story. So that you said you were
Mhm.
curious my perspective on it. What was
Yeah.
the question around this? Because
Well,
there's
I
like the
think
story.
I think what now that you've had the accusation, right, and you've had to process that and kind of evaluate your own connection to self and soul and spirit, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who is
Hmm.
working with spiritual things and either being judged for their spiritual path or and maybe not even by religion, right, but by other spiritual practitioners who are telling them they're doing something wrong? Like how did you reconcile um, kind of that what's the word, confrontation? Did you give up light language? Did you give up that kind of connection? Did you, like, what did you do? Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say that one of the most profound pieces of that journey was sharing the voice message with you, a trusted person who you, and especially because of the work you do. So there was like double, someone who like is in that space, who knows you, who also can hold the space to be non-biased. Because you even
Hmm.
said like I love you and everything, but also I'm a professional in this. And when you threw back at me, you didn't throw it, but like when you kind of pinged back to me, take
My daddy talked to you.
that. You totally did. Because you were like, you basically said something like, do you trust your connection? Is there anything in your journey or in that specific instance that was outside of what you normally do, or did you pick up on anything? Like, was there anything different? Like, what's your connection? Do you trust your connection? And if you trust your connection, then basically fuck everyone else. Also, yeah, sure, take it into consideration, reflect. But if you trust your connection, that I feel like that's been a solid message of yours throughout me ever since I met you. Is how important to you that your connection is sacred and it comes first. And it's like that trust is built with the connection first. So hearing that back, I think that was enough of a like, well, if I don't trust my connection, then what the fuck am I doing? I think that was, I'm like, I've taught people how to open the Akashic records. Like, I've done this stuff. So if in this moment I'm not going to trust my connection, I dismantle everything.
Right.
So past that point, I didn't even entertain that as an option because I was like, no.
Hmm.
And then to answer your other question, like, have I abandoned those things? I think that's the part where things get a little bit interesting because it wasn't that long after that that I felt like, it's like, okay, well, maybe take a step back from the Akashic Records for now, with the branding and everything, which I already knew on a bigger scope that was going to happen because I was going to be asked to like own what it is that's coming through me instead of like, oh, but it's only the Akashic Records who speaks this. Like, allow that to come through me and then I can speak it. So I already knew that kind of a change was coming. But it's interesting at this point. How long ago was this? 6 months, maybe 6 months
Probably, yeah.
ago.
Hmm.
Yeah. So like at this point, it's like having Akashic records kind of like take a pause, and then it's still there because I was curious when that first stepped away. I was like, am I still going to do Akashic record stuff? It sure didn't feel like it,
Right.
but I was like, there's no. I didn't. I knew it was still going to be there, and I knew I was going to use it. I just didn't know how. And so since then, I've given a couple of Akashic readings. I had like spirit come and be like, hey, like offer readings. And I put it out there and someone signed up for a reading and it absolutely changed their life. They were like, they've sent me raving messages a couple of times, like, oh my God, like my whole life is different. I'm so glad. Like, I can't, like, they're just so mind blown. I don't think it's just Jeni. Well, it could be Jeni because I've held that connection and I didn't waver. Sure, I can claim that, but also spirit was running through me, and in that session, language came through.
Mm,
In a session with someone else, language came through.
mm,
So it still has happened after that, and each time it comes through, it's always a different experience. It's always a different experience as far as the way it comes through, the pace at when it comes through. I recently had an experience where, and this hasn't happened since it activated, where the language that came through is very like, and that's not come through with anybody. And it was so
mm.
hard for me to keep up for it, but that's what was there. And yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
Mm.
it's still been present because when I work at the records, I trust my connection and I allow the messages that are meant to come through come through.
I think it's really interesting that even as you told the story, you talked about how it was one of the most clear times that this has happened to you, right? And so you have this like incredible clarity, and then that's the one that gets
Bam.
challenged, right? I
Oh.
think that's on purpose
Mm.
because it really was an opportunity for you to say, like, if it wasn't clear and it was only like so, then if it were challenged, maybe you would have been a little bit like, oh, well, maybe this is out of my alignment because it wasn't clear, right? But to have like, but I really feel like spirit set you up for this, right? Like, it was a setup. And it was one of those trust building exercises where then you got to then say, no, look at this clarity, right? And whether or not even now that client, we don't know, and we really can't say what, but what it shifted for you. And maybe it was that you needed to have that trust in order for spirit to ask you to step back to see
Mm-hmm.
this outside, like it all, right? And I love that you share this because I really do feel like this is a big thing going on in the world with people, especially in the spiritual communities who have started on their paths, right? We'll never all get there. Let me rephrase that. Nobody will ever be done. Right? Right. But I'm going through it too, right? You know that. Things are shifting, things aren't working the way that they used to work, right? And to still maintain that trust can be a bit of a challenge, especially when you're being challenged by other people that are supposed to be spiritual and working in love and light, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I think it's tough too because for me, a lot of that, like you said, grounding back in the trust in yourself and that lesson there. I think that in my journey coming into this, to my knowledge, to my memory, I didn't have these experiences as a little girl that I remember.
Mm.
Perhaps I did, but there, I didn't have this kind of stuff. Um, if I did, it was, I'm guessing it was shut down just by the world around me. Like if I said, oh, I've seen an imaginary friend, like I don't remember having anything that was
Uh-huh.
invalidated. Let's put it that way. So even coming into this, like I never thought that I would be a channeler or a reader. I mean, I think at some level, a lot of us really like want that in this space because I've met people who are just chasing trying to like, what is my thing? I want to be special too. Because I think there is an aspect of like pedestal, and we might talk about that in the future, but like there is
Yeah.
this aspect of like that. So when people like this person, have a story of, I've done this since I was a little girl and, I've been trained all along and I've, had these gifts, then share something like that. Um, Especially when you have such an aversion to it
Right.
after you've heard on social media about the inverted akashic records and you're like, god, is that me? Am I like I wondered that, not here
Mm.
recently, I really haven't played with those thoughts here recently, but like really maybe, shit, maybe because I was wondering all that, that's why it happened, because like just being like, yeah, just wondering. Or even when I come across people on social media who talk about how they were this and that medium and now they've completely denounced it all because they realized they were channeling some demon or something, and it was just a trickster. Like there's so many of those stories,
Hmm.
and I don't want to
Hmm.
invalidate anyone's stories, but I also, I don't even know how to say this. Maybe you can help bring more like grounding and clarity to this, but it's like there's something about this journey that I really like respect and understand that there is a dichotomy as much as I would want to just live in one aspect.
Yeah, no,
I
totally.
don't feel like my journey, I don't think I'm meant to just be like the love and light aspect as much as I would love to be.
Right,
We know people who just want to be love and light, and if anything comes on, like they're running for the hills because they don't want to be associated with it.
right,
Um, but like how can I don't feel like that's part of my path.
right.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Maybe maybe like you understand. Like I just am like,
Yeah, I mean, I'll give an example, right? For me, the thing that I was chasing that I wanted was to be a medium. Like my mentors were mediums. Like I loved watching them work. Like the
mhm,
the work that they do with people is so fascinating to me. And then having kind of that spiritual visual when people are working to see what spirit is doing with them when they're working. Like that was like I'm like, I want that so bad, right? And there came a point where spirit was just like, no, you will never work like that. And there's a part of me that can play into that and be like, well, if I'm the creator and I can do what I want and yeah, I probably could. I could probably control the situation and force myself into only this kind of development and tell spirit and the universe, take it or leave it, right? And it would probably work, right? Oh, there goes my light.
is that spirit saying no? It wouldn't.
Yeah, right.
It would
Okay.
probably work. No.
It probably works for some people, like those love and light people that are saying, I will only do this. What the heck?
As you get more dark. Oh my
Oh,
God.
wow, it came right back on. Okay, whatever.
Dude,
Yeah,
that's epic.
okay.
That's epic.
So maybe it wouldn't. What? All right, whatever. I will leave it for now and finish my thought and then come back to it. I, the point being, though, of course, right, that I have chosen to work as spirit directs, and I have made that promise to them that I would expand or align in the ways that they needed me to for the work that they needed to have done, right? And I kind of feel like you're leaning into that a little bit too. Like I trust that whatever spirit decides is going to be super fun because they understand and know my talents and gifts, right? I can see how if people don't trust that, then it would be scary to give up that control, right? But I have worked on building that trust for so long that I have no doubt that spirit's going to choose the right thing for me. And if that's love and light and whatever, sounds kind of boring to me, but okay, right? uh, but yeah, I have never felt like I needed to direct somebody's spiritual path into a particular pigeonhole, including my own. Um, and I struggle a lot when I see people trying to do that.
Mm, yeah,
And
because it's not our role. It's not our role to. Oh, I don't know. The way I was going to say that was a little contorted because I was like, it's not our role to protect others, but like that's not fully true. I meant more of just like,
mhm.
oh God, this might be too much for you. Let me soften it.
Ooh, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what if we allow the person to have the experience, and then if they need more understanding, guidance, softening, etc., then can
yeah.
we provide that to them also if that's in alignment? Because I mean, I spend a lot of my days doing health coaching now. And so in
Hmm.
health coaching, at least the ways that we've been taught within this with this role that I have is how can we hold space for the person, not tell them what to do, because that is common in coaching, even though that's not the
Sure.
basis of coaching. It's common in coaching to tell people what to do. And it's more about like how do you guide them to their own power. And you
Yeah,
can still be that expert. You can still help them come up with ideas and solutions, but you have to be mindful of the energetic balance between to make sure that you're not kind of like leaning. And I can feel it sometimes in my sessions. I can feel when I start to lean a little bit more in because I start to maybe have more interest in the outcome than they do. And I
Sure.
have to pull myself back to make sure that that stays neutral and they're the one choosing the next step. And in this particular situation, this person was like, oh God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, and kind of like covered the person because of their beliefs. And this person might have been completely okay with it.
Right.
So then maybe how did it distort this person's view? If it was like, ah, and then all this person's scared every time they hear, ah, potentially,
Sure, sure.
we don't
Yeah,
know.
right. Anytime if that practitioner went back to that client and said this was evil and whatever else, and you need cleansed of it now, and it turned into this whole big production, right? That is manipulating that client's perspective of that experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see this a lot in a lot of the religious kind of structures, right? That kind of it's my way, I have the answers, I will give them to you. And as people, we get programmed by our society to look to external sources for spiritual answers. So I can even see in your coaching business, right? Where if somebody comes and asks you a question, they really just want you to give them the answer. They don't want to have to do the work to come into their own alignment and find their own empowerment and make the choice themselves, right? We would love it if people would just solve our problems for us. And spirit doesn't work that way very often, right? And that can be very frustrating when we're having this kind of work because it is very much, well, what do you want to do and how do you want to work? And make the choice. And I know that goes against what I just said about how I'm going to trust spirit to do the direction, right? But again, we have these dichotomies where two things are true at once, right?
Mm-hmm. So, what are your thoughts on then, kind of pulling in that devil's advocate, that other side of, in the case of this practitioner, perhaps reaching out and saying that's really evil, etc. What are your thoughts on like that person feeling like there's an alignment and that's exactly what they were meant to do and that they are working in the highest, you know what I'm saying? Like
Sure.
that particular person could literally, they might have felt like they were doing the work of insert
Whoever,
whatever,
yeah.
you know. Um, so like what about in that case when, like who's to say they weren't absolutely in alignment?
Well,
It
had
doesn't feel like it, but like,
right. Had you not been the first one to come to me, and had I not known you, and had this person come to me and went, "Oh, I had this light language lady come in, and she said, she had this thing, and man, it sure felt wrong to me." Like, I would almost bet that in a session, spirit would validate her,
mm,
right? Because spirit's going to ask her to have her alignment and to do the work that she does. And anytime that anybody's told that they're wrong, it's pushing them out of their alignment, right? Especially if spirit's telling them that it's right and that they need to work in a particular way. I get told all the time that I'm wrong because a lot of mediums get the opportunity to work with loving grandmothers. We've talked about this before, and I don't. But a lot of mediums don't get to work with and see the things that I get to work with and see, to the point where a lot of them will deny that the things that I see even exist,
mm,
right? And I don't think they're wrong. I think that they're not in this vibrational state where they have these experiences, and good for them, right? I don't need to be right in that case for them because, and I don't want to push them into a place where it's like, see this, right? Unless spirit tells me
mm-hmm.
to. I've done that with a couple of people that I know that we know. Take them to haunted locations and be like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
go down this hall. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oops, lights just went off. Ha ha
yeah,
ha ha
right, yeah, yeah.
ha.
But there's already kind of an agreement and an alignment in that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where
Mm-hmm.
um, I would certainly hope that this person empowers their client and that that client gets to come to a place where at some point they are capable of making the judgment for themselves, right? And because that's really what matters. That's who you were there for,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, it was a beautiful way of putting it because once again, it takes out the like, they're right, they're wrong, why didn't they, blah, blah, blah. because, okay, you've got this alignment, you have this alignment, you have this alignment. For whatever reason, these things did or didn't feel, because you and I both know that on our path, whatever it is we're meant to learn is going to keep smacking us in the face. So
Right.
hypothetically, if that practitioner keeps having experiences like this,
Right.
perhaps it's maybe an invitation to expand or whatever. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Or maybe go deeper into their path or whatever it is that's like teaching them. So there really is there I think we do the like right or wrong thing from an egoic perspective because we want to feel better about our decisions, especially speaking from my experience, I feel like especially if we're not rooted in them.
Yes.
And so
100%.
if I'm not feeling like super solid about my decisions or what I'm doing, I'm going to look for ways to make that stronger,
Yeah.
whether I'm doing it intentionally or not.
100%. And that is part of that playing with either expansion or coming into a new alignment, like uh, asking those questions that we were talking about before
Mhm.
about can I play devil's advocate with this or that, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you can definitely sit and be like, what if she was right? What does that mean? What, there will come a point though where you come back to your center of self and those questions just don't even matter anymore, right?
Disembodiment, embodiment.
Yep. Yep.
Honestly, because one of the forms of one of the ways that disembodiment shows up is, and this is from Andy Love, she was talking about the three different brains, the gut brain, the heart brain, or the mind brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the mind brain, when it shows up in the mind brain, it's overthinking, over analyzing, anxiety, like just spinning. And I spend a lot of time in that brain.
Yep.
That's, the heart brain is when it gets really emotional and we maybe then go to drinking or eating something or, making others wrong or over exercise or whatever like that form is. And then she said the gut brain is usually the last one that might kick in. And that's sometimes where you'll see it maybe manifest in different forms of disease. And not
Mm.
because she doesn't believe that the person manifests the disease per se. She feels like a lot of it is epigenetic that then is exasperated if that's kind of the last level it gets to, and you've been out of alignment for quite some time, that's how it then may present itself. But she was like, I want to make it very clear that it's not because someone thought their way into a disease.
Mm-hmm.
That is her take. So I'm not speaking on my take right now with that or anything, but just that was kind of the way she broke that down. And I want to make
I
sure that
like
was
that.
clear because I felt like the way I led into it was as if the person was wrong for, the gut brain is when you fuck it all up and all you do is you think like shit. No, she also said for females, this was new to me. She said for females, our egg was created in our grandmother's womb when like she was pregnant with our mom.
Mm.
And I was like, dude, that's wild. So, from an epigenetic standpoint, she didn't go super into this. This is me kind of connecting the dots. Is that whatever grandma was thinking at that time, or feeling, or experiencing, all of it, not just the negative, like just all of it, is, and you know what I'm saying? Is like
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
here. So, there could be something epigenetically that if we are out of alignment because we're, me, you know, those things can be exasperated. And I'm like, oh, dang, but at some point, are we going to choose to step into alignment? Is it worth the energy and effort? Is it worth the energy and effort wondering if she was right or wrong and how I can make it fit into her paradigm? That's a lot of
Right.
fucking energy. So I've
It
been
is.
using energy as my guide whenever I feel like, this is so much work
I
from
was
that
just
space.
I was just going to add, I don't think we have to step into our alignment. Our
Mm,
alignment is what we are. That's the easiest, right? So I kind of love that you're like, in order to see this from her perspective, I had to put all this energy into it to shift into that mindset, right? And it takes a lot of energy to be out of alignment. So,
a
but we
lot.
can talk about alignment because that's one of
Hmm.
those buzzwords. Like, how
Okay.
do we bring that into what is it to you?
Mm. The only notes I have on this that I kind of like it started with, and I think we've already touched on this, just different words to put it, is like the inner congruence and not the external perfection.
Mm, yeah.
And even in the scope of what we're talking about now, in that example or whatever, like I had to go over here to try to figure out how to make it work. For me, I must be in like in this embodiment phase because I just listened to it this morning, but it's like I'm over here living
Hmm.
out here based on someone else's rules and trying to fit into their world versus if I'm here in alignment in my own energy. I think that's one aspect of alignment, the inner congruence, the inner peace.
Yeah.
Um, but what do you think? What do you feel? What do you know?
When I think about this, I think like, what if everybody in the world was meant to be a baseball player, right? So it has something to do with talent, right? What are we talented in? Because even though somebody's meant to be a great baseball player, they have to practice. Like they don't get to, but there's also this like natural tendency towards a particular thing, right? So we have a talent, those talents need to be developed. I also feel like we have an alignment, but we can develop that alignment. And as we develop that alignment expands. We talked about expansion a little bit too, to incorporate more than just that original piece of what we are. So it's a little bit of growth in that expansion, right? It's a little bit of development, it's a little bit of focus, but it is an acceptance that if you're not meant to be a baseball player, right, that just because the world tells you you should be a baseball player, you know better, and you don't waste your time and energy developing a talent that you don't have, right? Because it's not who you're supposed to be. It's not what you want to be or claim to be. So there is in alignment for me this bit of ease because I don't have to be something I'm not. I don't have to chameleon. I don't have to pretend, right? Um, and so it's coming back to that, what am I already versus what do I want to be or what am I told I should be, right?
It's interesting. Yay to everything you said. Yay. And I'm finding myself here. I find myself in this interesting place as we're talking about this piece of just kind of like this place of like, how do I want to say this? As you were talking about talents and stuff, where I'm at currently in my life is that it feels like what spirit has led me to, or whatever this phase or whatever's going on, I have a lot of talents. But when I go to engage those talents, I can't say I'm like uber engaging them on the streets. It's not like I'm singing on the street and then like I'm getting my voice is getting cut off. But like when I think about like, oh, I could do podcasts, I could speak, I could coach, I'm great at this, and I think about all these things that I could do in my business, all those paths lead to is exhaustion. And there's like
Mm,
only a handful of paths that like lead to like non-exhaustion.
fulfillment,
So
hopefully.
more. Right. So it's like it's interesting because when you talk about the talent thing and kind of what you're meant to do, right, not meant to do prior to this phase that I'm in, I was all up in that. Oh my God, I'm so
Mm,
good at this and I'm so good at that and I'm so good at this. I'm a great sales, I'm great at coaching. I'm great at all these things. So as you were talking about that, I'm like, it's interesting because it felt like then I could pursue a lot of different things. And then now where I'm at, I could sit here and be like, yeah, just follow the energy where the energy is and isn't. But that energy disparity, I guess is the word, like was
yeah.
not as strong in this phase prior to that. So then
Mm,
I kind of look back and I wonder, with everything you just shared and that I was trying to think from that perspective, I'm like, would that have been available? Like, what does that even mean? Because I think that
mm.
previous version of me would, and I think that's the face that I was having where I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? From that old space, right? Like what you shared, I'm like, what? Because
Well,
I was off
I'm glad
chasing
that,
my talents, you
yeah,
know?
well, I'm glad you brought that up though, because you've got a point, right? Like I want to be clear that I used the baseball player and the talent as kind of an example to try to bring in, bring down this idea of alignment into the world, right? In the way that we think about things as humans. But but you are absolutely right. There's more talents that maybe you could choose to align to, right? But your alignment is kind of the ones that are chosen without you making the effort. Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
I agree, and I'm
Or
trying to
that
think from that previous. Is
it
I'm
still
like,
takes
there's a lot
effort
of things
though.
that
Yeah.
were easy, that were relatively easy. Like there's a lot of things that feel relatively easy to me.
but not
Or
fulfilling.
maybe that's the phase I'm in. Maybe that's why I have a bit of a like, because I
Mm,
think I'm still right now, I'm trying to really come into alignment with what is really fulfilling for me.
yeah.
A lot of things in my business and what I'm doing have been like completely demystified and just pulled apart. And I kind of don't really know what's what because it's like whatever I thought was is not. And every time
Hmm.
I try to like put that program back in the computer, it's like does not compute. Like it's like it instant spit out of the CD or the program or whatever. The floppy disk gets pushed out, like I think that's why I'm like, what does that even mean? Because I just feel like I think I'm in that exploration myself. Like, what is fulfillment? I think that's what spirit and what my life is inviting me to align with.
Yep.
Because yeah, I think
And
my big story is I've tried so hard. I've been trying for 10 years to like figure this out, and I'm like done trying. That's really like the crux of it.
and you've hit on so many more things, right? Because fulfillment will mean different things to different people, right? So you've got to define that first, probably, in order to see what you find fulfilling. Is it money? Is it wealth and abundance? Is it freedom? Is it security? Is it control? Right. And then you also talked about how you had that and it was fulfilling at the time, probably,
Mm-hmm.
right? When
Mm-hmm.
you were in alignment, but now it's not. And then you ask yourself kind of, oh, well, was I not in alignment my whole life? Right. But I also think that's the wrong question because of course you were in alignment, but your alignments can change, right?
Yeah.
And that's that shifting, quantum leaping, whatever else you want to, what other buzzword you want to give it, right? You
What is
created a
that?
new reality.
Someone just said, I was just talking to a friend this week, and they were talking about, how like nobody likes change. Some of us maybe are more open to change than others, or maybe seek out change, but generally, like, we don't like change. And so
Bullshit.
there's change that we choose, and change that happens to us, you know. Um, but like, if we're not changing, we're kind of dead. Like, what's the point?
We
You
love
know?
change.
Yeah,
Humans love
like
change.
you're like, I
Yeah.
don't agree.
You can fight that as much as you want. Like I know that you want to not like change.
You know what? I'm okay with it, but I feel like I could see how humans don't like change. But like in the end, I guess they like it. Is that kind of the angle you're coming from? Like at the end, they like it because we fight for
Yeah.
our limitations often as humans.
We very often I understand the white knuckling and the control of like life is good, let's not let anything change, right? But when things are bad, we definitely want change,
Hmm.
right? And this is something that I kind of agree with the religious teaching on. It's taught in tarot too, that if we stop changing, that's the literal definition of damnation, right?
Mm.
In
Hmm.
so heaven would be constant change and growth and expansion because you're not damned, right? So if this is the nature of humanity, there must be something that we like about it to keep playing this. But what that is, I guess you'll have to define for yourself. What is it about change you like? It's a really good question to ask.
Ooh, ooh, but this also brought up. I I think you and I talked about this before with a previous experience that you had, a recent experience you had. But just like this, maybe I don't know. But anyways, on the words that we use and
Yeah,
like the spells that we cast. So it makes me even wonder just by being like, we hate change, and that being something that's been like driven into humanity at some level from media, from whatever cultures. We hate change, but then it kind of goes against like the divine nature of who we are. Like it's interesting because even just believing and saying and agreeing to that we hate change, I wonder if it just keeps us stuck. Just that thought,
absolutely.
you
Hmm.
know. Because I think you
Yeah,
shared something about a recent experience about like the stories that we tell over and over and over and over kind of keep us there.
yeah. I
The
don't
more that we
remember
tell.
exactly the context of it, but it sounds like something I said.
I think it's when you got back from one of your retreats that you were on, something that you learned from spirit about like stories, like,
Oh yeah, and the
anchoring us
triggers.
in.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The idea that we get triggered by something and then we tell the same story again, right? And then and it's so clear to outsiders where it's almost like you were triggered by this as a way of like yanking you back into this habitual pattern, right? And then you told us all about it so that you could relive that whole energy again. And then you'll be totally like working on the healing and the shifting and whatever else. And you could be in a totally unrelated space and all of a sudden something triggers you and then it's right back there, right? We do that a lot.
Mm.
And oftentimes we say those half-hearted sayings we don't even realize we're saying, like I hate change, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I can feel the energy like coming to a close, and let me know what you think about this idea because it's like our first one that we've recorded. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so final words, final thoughts from Spirit Daddy. Lay down the line, give it to us. Like what? What did he say?
I already have a
Daddy
closing here for Spirit Daddy.
said.
Touch dirt and drink your water.
I wanted that cheeky like TikTok side of Spirit Daddy.
Yeah, I don't got anything. I'll work on it.
Okay, Spirit Daddy says touch dirt and drink
And
water.
drink your water.
Okay, we're celebrating on Zoom with that. Ooh, 3D. Is that new? That
Yeah,
like 3D perspective instead of just
yeah.
being in front of me? That is really cool. Is it going to happen again? Now it's not going to happen. Raise the rule. Now it's not going to happen. Boo. That was cool. Well, so I guess till next time when we connect in this world of
Yes.
the dichotomy, physical and spiritual,
Spiritual. External, internal.
everything in between.
Yes.
Till next time. Bye.